Welcome back to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to talk about this story of Israeli espionage, this particular story of Jonathan Pollard, which you guys have mentioned several times that I should run an episode on. It's really fascinating for several reasons. One of the reasons is the amount of intelligence that this guy gave Israel is insane. Like when the FBI is up doing a January 6th hearing, and they're like, how many agents were in the crowd? And they say, well, we can't tell you sources and methods. This guy gave Israel the entire 10-volume series on sources and methods, like everything in the world going on that the United States was up to was a huge amount of information that this guy gave him. And the answer to that question about January 6th was, of the 2,000 to 2,500 protesters at the Capitol, 250 of them were with the FBI. So 10% or over if the lower figure of 2,000 is more accurate. So whatever. Anyways, this guy is also very interesting because of the way he was indoctrinated by his parents to become a traitor. Like that's all he could ever be, because and the entire thing's so treasonous. We're going to talk about that. The Israeli military officer that he ends up feeding all the information to, don't worry, Trump's going to pardon him after he's convicted. You know, there's a lot of parts of this story that are interesting. So let's start, okay? So his name's Jonathan Pollard. He was born in 1954 in the U.S. to a Jewish family, right? And they made an effort to instill in him a sense of a Jewish identity, right? Including Zionism. And basically it was his bar mitzvah time. And he was so indoctrinated already that he said he can't do the bar mitzvah. He's got to go see where his, ancestors all died at. So they take him to Europe, they take him to Israel and all this stuff, And it becomes such a psychosis type thing that he completes high school. He goes to Stanford University. He's going to get a degree in political science there in 1976. And while he's there, he's boasting that he's a dual citizen of Israel, that he was a colonel in the IDF. He even sent himself a telegram addressed to Colonel Pollard, which is just nonsense. He said he worked with the Mossad. He said that he killed an Arab outside of a kibbutz. Like, imagine somebody making all this stuff up in this fantasy land that the guy's living in. It's pretty insane. He says that his father, Morris Pollard, was a CIA operative and that they had to flee Czechoslovakia as a child during the Prague Spring in 1968 when his father's CIA role was discovered there. None of that's true. So this type of indoctrination of Jewish children it's not unusual at all, which creates an enormous problem with having people like this in your country. So there's this documentary called Israelism, and I'm going to put it as a first reference below. It's unrelated to my channel at all. And I couldn't stomach too much of it, honestly, but you'd only got to watch a couple minutes of it to get the idea of what's going on. But basically, the parents will send these kids to these camps or whatever type of thing they're doing at the synagogue. I don't know what they're doing. They'll just indoctrinate the kids, and then they'll tell the kids, like, what country would you like to go to more than any other country in the world? And the kids all yell, Israel. What's your favorite country in the world? And the kids are all yelling, Israel. And that's why documentary is called Israelism, because that's what they're indoctrinating the kids. And it's a serious problem, and it leads to this type of treason that we're going to discuss. So basically, this guy, he tries to get a job at the CIA. And basically, he has, in the polygraph test, he admits that he's got 5 years of heavy drug use. So they don't let him in. So then he goes to naval intelligence, and you don't have to take a polygraph there. Though they did ask the CIA to look at the polygraph for this application that they denied on this guy. And the CIA should have shared that. There's no reason not to share from a failed candidate who you're not going to hire at the CIA to share that with naval intelligence. So since naval intelligence doesn't do a polygraph, he just gets in, right? So he graduated Stanford 76, 79, now he's in, right? And he's going to do his treason from 84 until 85. So June 84 to November 85, a little over a year, right? So basically, United States and Israel has this agreement at the time that if they ask or we ask for intel, we'll share it. Probably, right? That's kind of the deal. Probably we'll share it. And once he started seeing how much intelligence the United States had, because he was working with naval intelligence, he realized that the U.S. wasn't sharing too much with Israel at all. And the guy's not like a dual citizen or nothing. This is just a red, white, and blue blooded American here. You know what I mean? Obviously not, but so he's got so much interest in this foreign country. He's like, man, we should be sharing more, even though they're not asking for it. And if they did, we'd probably give it to him. But, so he ends up by chance meeting this Israeli colonel in the Israeli Air Force. This is the guy that Trump's going to pardon for all of his treason that he's going to do in the United States, all of his espionage. I'm sorry. Pollard is committing treason. That Sella, the colonel, is going to commit espionage. So basically, he just meets this guy and he just says, hey, there's a lot of information. So this guy reports back and then starts working him as an asset, but being careful in case the U.S. is behind it and they're dangling him to give false information or something. And so like, okay, so we have unclassified documents. You can look them in the links below. This is one of them, and it shows basically what the objectives were that Israel put on this guy. And I think it's pretty interesting. So basically, the Israelis submitted the following collection requirements in descending order of priority. So the top priority is at the top, which is Arab and Pakistani nuclear intelligence, Arab exotic weaponry, including chemical and biological weapons, Soviet aircraft, Soviet air defenses, Soviet air-to-air missile and air-to-surface missiles, Arab order of battle, deployments, readiness, then three things redacted. And then he provided additional tasking for redacted material reporting quote-unquote dirt on Israeli political figures, any information that would identify Israeli officials who were providing information to the United States. So counterintelligence, this goes on. You can check this out in the article below. Okay, so the type of information that Pollard was giving Israel, and keep in mind that they had set up basically like an apartment, and they had put high-speed printers in it, and he would check out information that he's not allowed to leave the building with. It's not even actually in the field of stuff that he was supposed to be researching. And he would take it to the apartment, run high-speed copies of it, and then run the information back. He's going to be easily caught once they get whiff of what's going on because he's not even allowed to be accessing the information that he's accessing. But it still went on for over a year. And so he gave them basically information about the VQ2 electronic surveillance system. And like I said before, the 10-volume radio and signal intelligence, which is RASIN manual, detailing the entire U.S. global listening profile, detailing what communications the National Security Agency was monitoring, from which countries, and what the U.S. priorities were. So some of the stuff he gave to Israel ended up in the Soviet hands because the Israel was most likely giving the information to the Soviets in order to help the continued emigration of Soviet Jewish citizens to Israel. So, I mean, like if you try to make the argument and say, well, okay, I mean, it's not too bad if Israel steals all of our sources and methods. And then you give them to the Soviet Union during the Cold War because Israel wants Israel's interests, you know, and obviously this Pollard dude wants Israel's interests. Anyways, so like I was saying before, Salah, who's the colonel, he was eventually indicted on 3 counts of espionage by a United States court. Israel refused to allow Salah to be interviewed unless he was granted immunity. The United States refused because of Israel's previous failure to cooperate as promised. Israel refused to extradite Salah, instead giving him command of Tel Nof Air Force Base. The U.S. Congress responded by threatening to cut aid to Israel, at which point Salah voluntarily stepped down to defuse tensions. So during the morning of January 20th, 2021, so this is the last half day of President Trump's first term. So this is 14 days after January 6th. He's about to leave the White House. He's swearing election fraud, this and that. He granted full pardon to Salah. The announcement stated that the state of Israel had requested the pardon and it issued a full and unequivocal apology. The announcement also stated that Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, United States Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, and Miriam Adelson had endorsed Salah's request for clemency. This is Miriam Adelson who gave him the $100 million or $200 million. I'm not sure what it was. And I'll put it on the screen for this election. I mean, just the worst trash. I'm sorry, but like just deport anybody who is in this country who's promoting the pardoning of a foreign military person who committed espionage on our soil. I'm just sorry. So I'm not sorry at all, actually. So he was arrested in November 1985. He pled guilty in 86. And then he's sentenced in 87. And so what happened with this is, let me tell you a good story, okay? So basically, we're going to send a delegation over to Israel to research and find out how they're trying to make a damage assessment report, right? So we send our guy who does that in Israel, who's a Jewish American, right? And we send him with the team over there. And the Israelis despise these people coming over because these people are actually working for America. And it's even worse that it's a Jewish guy who's working for America, who's actually doing stuff for America. I know, rare. But so they drive them around in like blacked out buses on bumpy roads. They make them switch buses all the time. They steal stuff out of their luggage. They curse at them and say, F you, you're never coming back, this and that when they leave. Like they really treated these Americans like crap because the Americans were trying to investigate the hero of the story in Israel's with their point of view. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So So he basically pled guilty. And part of the plea was they got to give all the documents back, which doesn't matter at this point because it's a couple years later and they've already copied all the documents and given a bunch to the Soviet Union and this and that. So getting the documents back is, they're just copies of documents that have been recopied already. It's clear. So that's just kind of silly. It doesn't make any sense to me. And the plea was, if everything went according to plan, he's not going to get a life sentence. The judge gave him life anyways. He gave him 30 to life in 1987. Now, his wife was involved, Ann Pollard. She was involved too, of course. And she was given 5 years, but was paroled after 3.5 due to health problems. So she was released in 1990, immigrated to Israel in 2010, because they're no longer together, And then so he's sitting in prison from 85, though he was sentenced in 87, and he's got to sit there for 30 years. And the way it works with federal charges is, in this type of scenario, is that if you get to the end of your 30 years, it's not like you go to a parole board hearing and they try to decide whether or not they let you out. If you're not reasonably suspected that you're going to reoffend, they have to let you out. So since nobody will give him a job in classified information, of course he wouldn't reoffend, And so, okay, so a couple more important parts. So remember, he was arrested in 85. He's granted Israeli citizenship while he's in prison in 1995. So 10 years later, okay? And normally they don't do this. Normally the situation is, if you're a Jew, right of return, you want to come back, they'll give you citizenship when your feet touch the ground. You have to immigrate, and then they'll give it to you. Now, I'm sure there's special cases like this one, where you wouldn't have to, like if you were a billionaire or something. I'm sure they would make exceptions. Well, they made exceptions for this guy because he had showed his disloyalty to the United States and his loyalty to just another country. So anyways, so let me just give you the story. Now, one of the interesting parts of the story is how everybody's going to try to get this guy released early. And I want to know every single American that pushes for a traitor guilty of espionage in a massive way to a foreign country. And I want to know who's pushing to get it. And I'm not going to be able to even spend the time to name all the people, because there's also like 111 New York representatives, state representatives have signed a petition to, I don't understand it. Well, I do understand it, actually. Anyways, it's nearly incomprehensible. So he's going to spend all 30 years in prison. He's going to get out in 2015. He's going to do a 5-year parole. Then he's going to immigrate to Israel in 2020. When he immigrated to Israel, Sheldon Adelson, late husband of Miriam Adelson, hired a private jet, and Netanyahu met him on the tarmac. I'm going to play that video for you in a second. Actually, you know what? I'm going to play it now. So this is going to be kind of a long video, and I'm just going to talk over it because I'm not going to put the audio on the video. He's talking in Hebrew. The only interesting part that's in English is at one point, Netanyahu says in English, he says, "What a moment. What a moment." Like, what do you mean, what a moment? It's just, the whole thing's so disgusting. So while I play the video, I'm going to start it right now with no sound, and I'm going to talk about all the people, well, a lot of the people who tried to negotiate his release since 1988. So he's sentenced in 87. In 88, they start. Now, there's also this thing that's going on during this time where Israel takes more and more responsibility for what he did, what Pollard did, because it will give them leverage in their bargaining to, if they don't admit that he was involved in anything related to Israel, then why are they trying to bargain for his release? So at first they say, no, he was just doing it by himself. Then they say, it was just the Israeli Air Force doing it. And then eventually they just say, yeah, Israel was completely behind it. Okay. So in 1988, Israel tried to get a 3-way exchange when Pollard and his wife would be released and deported to Israel. Israel would release Soviet spy Marcus Klingberg, also Jewish, and the USSR would exercise its influence with Syria and Iran to release American hostages held there by Syrian and Iranian sponsored terrorist groups. In 1990, Israel was trying to offer Yosef Amit, an Israeli military intelligence officer serving a 12-year sentence for spying for the United States and another NATO power, so on Israel, in exchange for Pollard. And then Amit, that guy Yosef Amit, said he had no desire to be exchanged. And that would be an interesting story to dig into, because if he was so loyal to the United States that he's like, I don't want to be done with my 12-year sentence, if that means that nasty dude Pollard doing 30 years gets out early. That would be funny. During the 1990s, former University of Notre Dame President Theodore Hesburgh, a family friend of Pollard's, attempted to broker a deal whereby Pollard would be released, quote, be banished to Israel, end quote, and would renounce his U.S. citizenship. So, and this was written about in the paper. White House was not enthusiastic. Now, keep in mind that the reason why President Theodore Hesburgh of University of Notre Dame is doing this is because Jonathan Pollard's father is a microbiologist at Notre Dame, or microbiology, yeah, that's what I said. And so they're using their family ties to try to just betray America some more and get this guy out. So during 1995, Israel tried another three-way exchange. That's the same year they gave him citizenship. Until 1998, they say he was working for an unauthorized rogue organization. During May of that year, Premier, what was his name? Oh yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu admitted that Pollard had in fact been an Israeli agent answering directly to high-ranking officials of Lechem, the Israeli Bureau for Scientific Relations. The Israeli government paid at least two of the attorneys, Richard A. Hibby and Hamilton Philip Fox III, working for his release. I mean, okay. Oh, this is good. Yeah, this is good because Ehud Barak is in here and he was in the Epstein stuff. So let's cover this. So there was a campaign leading up to the 1999 Israeli general election, right? So it was Benjamin Netanyahu, otherwise known as Milikowski, and his challenger Ehud Barak disputed in the media over which had been more supportive of Pollard. So two prime minister candidates, and they're arguing which one's more supportive of Pollard, the traitor in the United States. If you're an American and you support this country, yeah, it's disgusting. I'm sorry. This is just too in your face. In 2002, Netanyahu visited Pollard in prison. It's unbelievable. I'm sorry. This is unbelievable. It's like Trump going to visit it's insane. Okay, get over it. In 2007, he pledged that if reelected premier, Netanyahu, he would obtain Pollard's release. Okay, in September 2009, the Israeli state comptroller, Micah Lindenstrauss, released a report saying how many petitions they had made for Pollard's release. Pollard's family said that's not true. They're not actually putting in enough petitions for his release. In June 2011, 70 members of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, endorsed the Pollard's family request that President Obama allow Pollard to visit his ailing father, Morris. So that would be the microbiologist's dad. When Morris died soon afterward, Netanyahu announced Israel's official endorsement for Pollard's request to attend his father's funeral. Both requests were denied. Okay, and then in 2014, there's some stuff, and honestly, there's a lot of requests that come right at the end here, because remember, he's going to get released in 2015 when his 30 years is done, and I don't really put a lot of stock in berating people for wanting somebody to be released from prison who's been in prison for like 29 years. You know, at that point, I'm, in the first 5 years of incarceration, 10, 15, these people are doing this. It's absolutely disgusting. At the end, you could just make the argument, well, yeah, he is a traitor, and yeah, what he did was terrible, but it's not humane to, and you can kind of make that argument. And so I'm not really going to go against that. Anyways, this is a wild story. The way he was indoctrinated is insane. The amount of information that he gave to Israel is insane. The amount of people who tried to get his release and, all of that stuff's insane. But an interesting thing about this that I learned was when I was researching this is I learned about all the different espionage cases between Israel and the United States. So in the near future, I want to cover another one of these, and this one I've never heard and nobody's ever put in the comments, but it's about of a spy stealing classified information, giving them to Israel. But who are they going to transfer the information through? AIPAC. Non-fair registered AIPAC. They're not working for Israel. No, there was a case involving classified information going to Israel through AIPAC. I got the names of the people. I want to cover it in the future and why the people in AIPAC didn't even get prosecuted, of course. And then on Thursday, I'm going to do an episode and I'm just going to show you about the website, what we've done. It's now live. As of the posting of Thursday's video, it will be live. And I just want to run that down, all the advantages and things you can gain from that. And I hope to see you there.